Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for checking the video out today. We have more PlayStation news, rumors, and leaks to go over and cover here today. So before we get into these topics, do me a big favor. If you do end up enjoying this video or finding it informative, be sure to leave it a like. It helps the videos out more than you know. If you are new here to the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button. And while you're at it, consider hitting that join button and becoming a channel member to gain access to some exclusive perks. But we are diving into the first topic here, which is a significant update to Dying Light 2. We did cover this previously, but some of you may have missed it, and with the new DLC coming out, I assume that some PS5 owners are going to be, going back to Dying Light 2, or maybe some haven't stopped playing it. But it says here from PlayStation Universe that Techland has unwrapped the full list of Dying Light 2 Community Update number 1, which comes with a wealth of performance improvements for all versions of the game. Chief among these include PS5 VRR support and balanced mode, the latter of which allows for a 1296p at 60 FPS. And so I'm not going to go down the list and talk about every single thing that comes with this update. It would take too long. I'm going to have this article linked down below so you can check it out, but I'm going to focus on the PlayStation 5 improvements. And it says here they added balance mode, as we talked about, running at 1296p at 60 FPS. It's upscaled to 4K using FSR. They added variable refresh rate or VRR support for performance mode, and it goes up to 120 frames per second. Both performance mode and quality mode output image is upscaled to 4K using FSR, and resolution mode works in native 4K at 30 frames per second. So yeah, this is something that I think a lot of PS5 owners who are playing Dying Light 2, planning to play the DLC, or thinking about going back to it, are going to be happy to hear about. I know that PlayStation 5 owners always look for these games that are taking advantage of all the PS5 features, and so we can add Dying Light 2 to that growing list. Moving to the next topic, though, we have some new gameplay information on Forspoken. This is coming from IGN, and they say Forspoken will include over 100 spells and abilities. You'll want to get to know how to use them in tandem because it includes a Devil May Cry style combo grading system. In an IGN exclusive Gamescom gameplay video, we see a number of combat encounters, showing the game's heroine Frey swapping between spells on the fly and using combos to take down groups of enemies. The game makes it very clear you're being graded on the efficacy of your spell use. A meter counts up from rank D to A, with experience multipliers offered for doing well. The game ups your grades on a number of categories, from using specific spells enemies are vulnerable to, stringing multiple spells together, evading enemies using parkour, switching spells mid-combat, and seemingly much more. It seems as though there'll be a lot to work with too. In an introductory video, Luminous Productions says that the core of Forspoken's gameplay is built around exhilarating action. By mastering over 100 of Frey's different spells and abilities, you'll be able to enjoy robust combat, exciting and intuitive magic parkour, and various missions. The gameplay itself shows a huge number of combos, from trapping enemies in a floating bubble that you can burst with piercing attacks, to using a jet of water to boost into the air and use sniping fire attacks from above. There's also a shot of Frey seemingly using an ice surfboard to trick off of a waterfall, which isn't a combo, but it just looked really cool. And so, yeah, I gotta say that, this is, I think, some good information we're getting on Forspoken, and I'm glad that they're focusing on the right things here as we get closer to launch, which in my opinion is the gameplay and, the core of what you're going to be doing for the majority of the game. I know that not everybody is feeling great about some of the other aspects of Forspoken, the story, the characters, the dialogue, and that's understandable. It remains to be seen how that's going to play out, but I think at the very least, and based off of what I'm seeing, everybody can kind of agree that the world, the combat, the spells, the enemies, all of this is looking really good. And so, yeah, I do find it interesting that they're going for a Devil May Cry-like grade system. I do think that's interesting and will certainly add a deeper layer to the combat. So let me know what you think about that. Moving on here, we're talking about a new game that was announced at Gamescom, where this title called Atlas Fallen is saying that their game is more like Horizon Forbidden West or God of War than it is Dark Souls, because after seeing this trailer, a lot of people were under the assumption that it's another Souls-like title, but it turns out that's not the case. So reading from Push Square, it says, the Surge developer Deck 13 Interactive has likened its upcoming new IP, Atlas Fallen, to God of War and Horizon rather than Dark Souls. The comparison comes as the studio's prior titles, including The Surge 2, could safely call themselves Souls-like thanks to borrowing many of the mechanics and general difficulty made famous by From Software, so Atlas Fallen now appears to be a departure from that. Speaking at Gamescom 2022, reported by VGC 24/7, the design director said Atlas Fallen will be more inspired by God of War or Horizon, but there will be a difficulty mode for players more used to games that the company has created before. Alongside an easier adventure mode and the standard difficulty option, there'll be a hard mode that tests your build optimization, combat skills, and ability usage. Atlas Fallen retains the body part targeting system of the Surge series, but Deck 13 Interactive has pushed everything a step further in the direction of advanced character management and moveset customization, so you'll get to approach combat in your own way. Systems are designed around speed and fluidity, and the sand all around you can be turned into a weapon. This leads to epic combo-driven dynamics, which in turn feed another central element of Atlas Fallen's combat system, the momentum bar. It consists of a gauge which gets filled as you multiply combos, progressively powering the gauntlet for increased damage and extra skills. It gives a wonderfully overpowering feeling to your attacks. So they are targeting a release on PS5 next year, and they say that we can expect to hear much about Atlas Fallen in the coming months. A native PS4 version isn't planned, by the way, so it's worth noting this is targeting current gen only consoles. And so yeah, I'm really liking everything I'm hearing about this game. This was one of the trailers that I saw during Gamescom that did stand out to me, and I kind of got that same feeling myself that yeah, this looks like it's going to be a Souls-like game, which isn't a problem. I love Souls-like titles, but I do find it interesting that they're making it clear, no, actually we would say this is, you know, more like a game like Horizon or God of War. That definitely appeals to me. So yeah, I'll be keeping an eye on this game for sure. Let me know what you guys think about it. Next up, we have some good news for PSVR 2. Apparently, it will be playable for the first time at TGS 2022. Sony's PSVR 2 headset will be playable for the first time on the TGS 2022 show floor. It's been confirmed. Attendees can sample the next-gen device through a Resident Evil Village demo, with the Japanese showcase taking place from the 15th to the 18th of September. This will be the very first time PSVR 2 has been playable publicly. And so as of right now, Resident Evil Village is the only confirmed playable PSVR 2 demo that will be part of TGS. You have to assume there's going to be more. We just don't know about them yet. Perhaps, you know, Sony will bring Horizon Call of the Mountain. There's also the rumor that Sony's having a showcase on the 8th of September. So if that does turn out to be true, then, you know, there's no doubt they're going to show more of PSVR 2 and announce some new games, and maybe some of those new games that are announced will be playable at TGS. That's just an assumption, so we'll keep an eye on that. But yeah, it seems like we are getting closer to a, you know, proper full-scale reveal of PSVR 2 and the games for PSVR 2. So I just wanted to let you guys know about that. But we're moving on to the final topic here, and this is the big one. This is some pretty, I would say, I don't know if it's unexpected, but it certainly does feel that way, because we just don't really see things like this happen. And it's the fact that Sony has increased the price of the PS5 in multiple regions, pretty much everywhere except the US. So this is being reported on by Push Square. They say Sony has announced it's increasing the price of the PS5 console in territories like Europe, the United Kingdom, Japan, China, and Canada. Jim Ryan takes to the PlayStation blog to say that this is due to, quote, high global inflation rates, as well as adverse currency trends impacting consumers and creating pressure on many industries. Based on these challenging economic conditions, SIE has made the difficult decision to increase the recommended retail price, end quote. USA is not affected by the price increase. And so I'm going to put an image up that will show you the price increase in each region. And we're going to continue here. It says, while this price increase is a necessity given the current global economic environment and its impact on SIE's business, our top priority continues to be improving the PS5 supply situation so that as many players as possible can experience everything that the PS5 offers and what's still to come. Jim Ryan then adds, as recently as July 30th, 2022, Sony avoided questions relating to a PS5 price increase, and we did cover that. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't think that Sony's reason for not answering it directly was because they actually were planning on increasing the price. But I have another article here from Push Square that I want to read before talking more about this, because they say why the PS5's price hasn't changed in the USA. It says Sony is being absolutely slaughtered on social media for increasing the price of the PS5 outside of the United States. Many are understandably frustrated that the firm appears to be gouging customers across Europe, Australia, and its native Japan. While that criticism is founded, it's also important to take a look at the facts. The US dollar is in an unexpectedly strong position against currencies like the euro and Japanese yen. It means that on current exchange rates, purchasing a PS5 at its launch price point converts to around $366. Similarly, the European launch price equates to about $498. You might rightly point out that this puts the European and US price points in line, but it's worth remembering that tax is excluded in America and needs to be added afterwards. It's clever that Sony is looking to maintain profitability on its hardware, which already operates on razor-thin margins. Obviously, there's a discussion to be had about whether the platform holder should be passing costs onto consumers, but the reality is that the system is still somewhat scarce. Ultimately, it probably feels like it's going to sell through its inventory regardless. Of course, the increased competition will also have played a part in the platform's holder decisions not to adjust the price in the United States. PlayStation is a notoriously dominant brand in most of Europe and doesn't experience the same kind of challenge from the likes of Xbox as it does in America. The article concludes by saying ultimately it's a bummer and bad news. Operating income for the PlayStation division was down 37% year over year in the firm's latest financial report, but it still turned a $397.3 million profit. Sony is pointing to soaring inflation and adverse currency trends as the reason for today's change, and while technically true, many fans feel justified in suggesting that the billion-dollar organization should just shoulder the cost a little longer. Now, I thought that this was a pretty good write-up from Push Square, and I wanted to cover this because they're covering both aspects here, and that's what really is just, you know, this is as divisive as it gets when it comes to opinions. I don't think it should be, because in my opinion, there are two facts here, and then after you take in those facts, you can decide for yourself how you feel about it. Fact number one, this is not good news for the consumer, for the customer. That's just a fact. Anytime we see a price increase, regardless of the reason, it's just bad news for us. You are now going to have to pay more money for a product than you would have previously. There's nothing good about that. The second fact is Sony does have a reason for doing this, and it's worth pointing that out. But that's where, at this point, you have to decide, do you believe Sony is justified here? To give my opinion on this, I absolutely do not think Sony is justified here. I understand from a business standpoint why they are doing this, and I understand what they're communicating, but I still don't think it's right. I am of the belief that you are a multi-billion-dollar corporation that is still profitable, that is still raking in millions of dollars of profit. Considering inflation, it affects everybody. Like, that's the thing about this. It's not just affecting Sony. It's not just affecting all these businesses and corporations. It's affecting us too. It's affecting the, average consumer. It's affecting all consumers. So the idea that Sony wants to kind of pass that on to us so that they can remain as profitable as possible, I'm not a fan of that. I'm really not. I just don't understand why Sony would think that this is the best course of action at this given time, considering their competition with Microsoft. It's all about the best deal, and you hear how people talk about Microsoft, how they talk about Xbox and Game Pass, and how they feel like they're just getting a great deal. They feel that Microsoft is very pro-consumer. On the other hand, they feel like Sony has not been nearly as pro-consumer. I just do not understand why Sony thought that this would be the best thing to do. Maybe, I guess, if I look at it from the perspective of an executive, and you just care about profitability and that's it, and you do not care about the PR hit or what people think, I get that. But again, Sony is a multi-billion-dollar corporation. In my opinion, there is no reason why they couldn't, shoulder the load here, as the article says, and just, try to be in favor of the consumer, of, the consumer that's already, struggling and going to continue to struggle. So, from where I'm sitting, what this ultimately comes down to is, because people are obviously furious online, and I have seen quite a few people, actually kind of pushing back against this a little bit. And so from what I can tell, and this is where I'm going to end the video because I'm really going on here, it seems to me that this boils down to you're either understanding and accepting of Sony's decision to increase the price of the PS5 in every region but the US, and you're okay with it, or you are not and you feel as though Sony should, be willing to eat this cost in favor of, garnering goodwill from the customer and, coming off more pro-consumer. And again, it's me up against a multi-billion-dollar profitable corporation. I'm sorry, I just cannot sit here and say that I don't think Sony should cover that cost. When you look at the things that Microsoft is doing, how they're eating the cost left, right, up, down, and center, I'm not saying Sony can match that. Sony is not a multi-trillion-dollar company like Microsoft is, but still, it's not like, there's some kind of poor company that's barely hanging on. I think this was a bad move. Straight up, I think it was a bad move. And I'm going to end this by, I know people are going to think I'm crazy here and a fanboy because they're going to say, how could you possibly end this on a good note? Well, if there's just at least one positive I can get from this, and this is the only positive, and this is just me trying to be overly optimistic, it's that with an announcement that's this bad for Sony's, image and a PR nightmare, for something that's going to cause this much backlash, to me it all but confirms that Sony has a show coming up soon, because we've seen Sony operate this way before, where they're going to put out the really bad news and then very quickly after they're going to give you the great news or the very good news that comes in the form of something we've been waiting for a long time, to just kind of sweep it under the rug. I'm not saying it's right, but it is a pattern and we have seen this. So yeah, I mean, that's really the only positive I can take away from this. But in general, it's just, in my opinion, not a good day for the PlayStation 5 and for anybody who has been hoping to get one. Anyway, that does it for the video, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. I hope you did find it informative. Be sure to leave it a like if you did. Leave your thoughts down in the comments below. Subscribe if you're new. Hit the bell notification icon, and feel free to share the video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.